Hey, welcome everybody to our Facebook Live. Hello. Look, we've got 6 viewers. How do I figure out who you are? 8 viewers. This is more than we've ever had.
That's a record so far.
Down to 7, down to 6. I think the more we speak about the numbers, the less. Fantastic. So here we are, Paul Feasy, Glenn Scrivener, and also in the corner we've got Andy Brinkley working hard on a laptop that is from the steam age, I believe.
Sweat pouring from his brow.
And there is steam coming up, not from the laptop, but from Andy's ears. As I hope that our audio is working. If our audio is not working, then please do say in the comments. And I wanted to welcome you to what this is, but I don't know what this is.
No, we're kind of discovering as we go along a bit, aren't we? I think.
What is the name? We put out on social media a few ideas for names. The winner so far is Speak Live. Huh?
Yeah, see what we've done there. It's like
we had 2 people. Yeah, you came up with that idea. And then,
unless you don't like it,
and that we drop it,
definitely nothing to do with
because we have such fear of men that we'll do whatever you say, whatever will give us the likes. And who was it? Simon Keith said Speak Live, as well as Sam Bostock. He also said Speak Live. Tim Dalton came up with Speak Easy.
Yeah. Nice.
What do we think? Speak Easy. Yeah. Tell us in the comments. What was another one?
2 for 2.
2 for 2 on Tuesday.
Although we're starting at 1 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
I felt that was.
Yeah.
Trade descriptions.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the pun is worth changing our entire schedule around. I don't know, Alan, but yeah. Maybe.
Thanks, though, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Alan. 2 for 2 on Tuesday, but hey, it's probably winning at the moment. So, because I wanted to call these hot pops.
And that's why we're asking other people.
Yeah, because it's a cross between hot takes and pop culture, right? Yeah. Hot pops.
Warm takes.
Yeah, right. Warm takes. Because we don't want to be like straight on the news and
neither hot nor cold. Tepid takes.
You can spit it out of your mouth if you like. So hot takes or heart takes. Yeah, getting beneath the news to the heart level. Slightly warmed over takes. I don't know.
But we're kind of hoping that you guys might be able to come up with a better name.
This is why we need help, people.
So let us know.
Yeah.
Because we need to know. We need something.
We definitely need help. So, Paul, tell everybody, what do we want to do with Hot Pops?
Leave that name behind to start with.
Okay, number 1, leave that name behind.
So basically, with this kind of live kind of podcast show, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be thinking about the video we released the previous day. So the plan is that we'll have a video out most Mondays, and then on Tuesdays we'll go live and talk about it a bit more, because there's stuff obviously that in a kind of 5-minute video that gets left on the cutting room floor, stuff we maybe wanted to talk about but there wasn't time for, so we'd love to chat a bit more in depth about that. And going live on Facebook means that hopefully if you've got questions or comments, we can kind of respond to those a little bit as well.
Like Lucy Atterby has just asked, what would you be advising Theresa May to pray about today? Good question. And Paul will be answering that question very shortly. It'll be sensational. But yeah, great question. Yeah, so interacting with that.
So we're already rolling now, aren't we? Yeah. And also we talk a little bit about kind of, we've got these sections we're calling it What's New and What's News. So we might talk a little bit about kind of things coming up in the life of Speak Life, kind of projects or how things have gone with stuff we've been doing. But we'll also be talking a little bit about what is going on in the news, if we feel there's something we can maybe speak into a bit.
Yep, like Theresa May. We were planning on doing some of that.
There was a little bit on that already.
We've even got a Bible reading for Theresa May.
Yeah,
so,
there we go.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's our kind of basic thing, isn't it? And it might develop, you never know.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. But...
And hopefully people have seen our video that we released yesterday. We're doing these thorny questions, and Paul came up with a list of about 45 or so. So I think 2018 is sorted for us.
Including dinosaurs?
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 Yeah.
Look out for that.
Yes, it'll be a very short video. Dinosaurs? Dinosaurs. And that's the video. So
I decided not to endorse your park.
So we will be talking about the Hypocrisy video that we released yesterday at 5 p.m. and we'll show you a brief clip from that a little later on. But in terms of what's new at Speak Life, Paul, what's going on?
Well, we're going to look back a little bit, thinking about Meet the Nativity. So I
Yes.
guess, well, hopefully some of you guys saw Meet the Nativity over the Christmas period. Kind of launched end of November, one a week in those 4 episodes. And just to kind of give a little bit of feedback on it, really, and how that's gone. You know, we've been really pleased with how many people have seen it. I think it was well over 200,000 views, wasn't it?
Oh, that's just on one version of episode 1. So overall 4 videos, we've almost reached 500,000. So that's great.
Yeah, positively received.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know, you know, various churches or people were saying,
Yeah.
we use this? Can we, you know, share the church? Or they had used it.
Yeah.
I know we used
You
it.
used it in your church.
Used
It
it
was
at our
like,
contemporary carol service, so we kind of had the 4 episodes and then I preached on it. They went, no, lots of people came.
my text for today will be Meet the Nativity, chapter 2,
This is the word of the Lord.
beginning at the first second. Yeah.
But, you know, people were saying afterwards that maybe they brought non-Christian friends and you know, some of them had not seen it and they really liked it. You know, maybe they were saying, oh, you know, particularly this character stood out. You know, for some of them they went, oh yeah, I like that one and that one. But, you know, actually Ruth's one really stood out for them, or, you know, Will or whoever.
Yeah.
And that was some of the positives about it, I think, that everyone could at least identify with one of the characters.
Yeah.
Although probably there's bits of all of them.
There's bits of all of us in all the characters. Yeah, and we gave away 1,700 books off the back of it, which is pretty phenomenal. We budgeted for 500, and all of a sudden 1,700 are requesting books to go deeper, so people were reading 4 Kinds of Christmas, which is great. And already we're thinking about next Christmas. So myself and the other 3 executive producers, so James Carey, Nate Morgan-Locke and Barry Cooper, we've got Easter sussed and we've got Christmas 2018, probably Christmas 2019 sussed as well. So you got to, well, it's all up here. It's like when you were at school and you had to do an assignment and like, I know the answer in my head and now I've got to write the essay and like... So now all the hard work begins on trying to make that stuff happen. But we at Speak Life, we love doing that sort of thing. We're an evangelistic organization where we preach the gospel live, and we've got some of those things coming up very soon. So we've got some university missions in February that we're going to, and we're going to Glasgow University and St Andrews University. For a week of mission events there. So that's one of the big things that we try to do, live preaching of the gospel, but also we equip churches in how they can share their faith, equip everyday Christians in how they can share their faith. So hopefully this show can help you as you share Jesus in everyday life. But I'm also, for instance, going to King's Community Church in Hedge End for the next 3 weeks, training them in how they can share their faith in everyday life. So those are sort of the 3 areas we work in. We produce resources that proclaim Christ, such as Meet the Nativity. We preach the gospel to other people, and we train Christians in how they can share their faith in everyday life. And so that's what we'll try and do in 2018. So, Paul, we've thought about what's new. What is news? What's in the news, man?
Yeah, well, it's seemingly, at least, I mean, don't know where you're watching from, but at least over here in the UK, the big thing that keeps popping up on the news is this cabinet reshuffle.
Cabinet reshuffle.
So yeah, Theresa May and her crowd all being shuffled, basically.
Yes,
shuffled
musical
around,
chairs.
moved from job to job.
Such an odd thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning, what would it be like at Speak Life if we just decided to reshuffle?
Yeah.
You know, Howard, who does the finances, he can do the podcast.
Yeah, brilliant. I could do the finance.
You do the finances.
No idea what I'd be doing.
And then the whole charity falls in a heap, and you know, we go and do more meaningful things with our lives, and who knows? I could do Andy's job, and then this entire studio would probably go up in smoke, like literally. If I touched that steam-powered laptop, it would all end. So reshuffling is an odd thing, isn't it? And to reshuffle every year or two. I mean, to have like a 5-year period where the government is in charge of things. I mean, that's pretty tough going, but actually to reshuffle all the time like this, it just makes you wonder what these politicians do if they're able.
You're able just to jump straight into that different.
Yeah, here's your portfolio. Here's a new portfolio. Okay. And
yeah, well, we talked a bit about it earlier, didn't we? And said that for a lot of them, it's the same people still running everything.
Right.
You know, behind the scenes, civil servants, and it's just someone at the top. You know, the name at the changes.
Yes. Which is not the impression you get from social media. The impression you get from social media is, you know, this particular person is killing us. Yeah. Because, like, for some reason. And we invest so much in our leaders. Because I don't know. Why do you think we, to begin with, we hope so very much in a particular leader. And then when they prove themselves to be, you know, made of flesh, we then absolutely pillory them. Destroy them.
Yeah. Like, well, I think people, like when someone new comes into a position, people have a genuine desire to see change. I think, don't they?
Right.
Over time, and they think, here's the new person, and you know, whether it's an Obama,
yes,
you know, who the kind of the messiah of, you know, the United States.
We are the ones we are waiting for was one of his big slogans. It was very messianic, very kind of
weird. Well, you know, think back to '97. You know, things can only get better.
Yes,
you know, it's like here's the Labour Party.
Yeah,
everything will be better from now on.
Yes, and the Tories went with New Labour, New Danger.
Oh, nice.
And if people remember that, there were these, you know, like billboards with Tony Blair, and his eyes were ripped off, and there were these very menacing, like, other eyes, cartoon eyes.
It says something that when your slogan just has, it's just being negative about the other side.
Yeah, totally.
You've got nothing.
You got nothing
apart from just
go
the other side. I think people want change, don't they? And so when someone new comes in or something, there's this hope. That this will be the thing.
The
silver bullet that will change it. And of course, we know 9 times out of 10,
feet of clay.
Stuff doesn't change.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff rolls on.
We were reading here at Speak Life. We were reading Psalm 72. When was it? Yesterday. Together, and it's just such a messianic psalm of, you know, the whole world will be set to rights when this king reigns, and the true royal son, the son of David, when he's on the throne, even the cosmos will be set to rights when this, and I just wonder whether there's that residual kind of belief almost in all people that maybe if we just get the right leader, like somehow the world will be set to rights. And in one sense, that's right. Like if Christ is reigning, then the world is set to rights. But
it's there, isn't it? I mean, you think about some people, you know, in the States, when Trump came in, for some people it was, this is what's going to make America great again.
Yes.
And for some people, it was a disaster.
Right.
For other people, when Obama came in, they thought it was the best thing. For others, it was a disaster. I think I said to you yesterday about an American friend of mine, you know, filling up with petrol, gas in the States, you know, chatting to a guy at the pump, and this guy just being really kind of down that Obama had become president, and you know, my friend saying, well, you know, I'm just lucky I don't put my trust in the president, you know. I had a bit of a chat with him about, you know, where does he put his trust?
In
Jesus. And actually, I think we have this temptation to put our trust in all these earthly things, earthly leaders.
Yes. Which also explains why we then, like, absolutely destroy them when they don't meet our messianic expectations. And I think, you know, and maybe your friend was thinking about Psalm 146. So this is my psalm for Theresa May, and it's a psalm, so you can pray it. So actually, Lucy, here's what I would advise Theresa May, and all of us as we think about Theresa May. Praise the Lord, O my soul. Psalm 176, and then verse 2, I will praise the Lord all my life. I will sing praise to my God as long as I live. Do not put your trust in princes, in mortals who cannot save. When their spirit departs, they return to the ground. On that very day, their plans come to nothing. Blessed is he whose help is the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord his God, the maker of heaven and earth, the sea and everything in them. The Lord who remains faithful forever. Don't we, you know, long for that with our leaders? He upholds the cause of the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free. The Lord gives sight to the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down. The Lord loves the righteous. The Lord watches over the alien and sustains the fatherless and the widow, but he frustrates the way of the wicked. And I think there's a word to us to not put our trust in princes and not put our trust in political leaders. But then if I was Theresa May, I'd also look at, well, what does God do? From his position of leadership, well, he upholds the cause of the oppressed, he gives food to the hungry, he sets the prisoners free. If you want a mandate to rule, then you must rule in a Christ-like way. And what's the kind of reign that the Lord brings? Well, he looks after the oppressed, the hungry, the prisoner, the blind, the bowed down. He watches over the alien, which is an American translation. I guess we'd say, what, refugee or sojourner,
Yeah, yeah.
and all that. So yeah, so how should we think about our leaders? Well, let's not put our ultimate trust in them. How should our leaders think? Well, maybe let's model our leadership after the Lord's leadership, which is the leadership that looks after the weak.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's our heart to take. So Simon Nash has also asked, so if Speak Life were the new cabinet, oh man, run for the hills.
Yeah, that's it.
Run for the hills. Plenty of tinned goods and bottled water. And yeah, what would you do? What would you do? I guess Psalm 146. That's what we would do, flawlessly and perfectly.
Of course.
So put your trust in us. That's what we do. Ian McCarthy. Is it that the civil servants carry the load while ministers carry the can? Good line.
Oh man. Nice.
Yeah. Civil servants carry the load, ministers carry the can. Yes, and for more on that, watch every episode of Yes Minister. Good, so that's what's new and what's news. Let's start thinking about hypocrisy. Oh, actually, before we do that,
The other video.
yeah, there was one other thing we saw on the BBC website. I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but there was this scars video in which it was all women, wasn't it, who had some serious burns to their body. What do they do about those burns? And of course, naturally, what we all want to do is we want to cover up things that we feel to be blemishes, and we don't feel that people could handle us in those parts of us. And yet, this was all about a photographer who was taking pictures of these women, and these women kind of released and liberated and happy and at peace with their own bodies, being seen by other people. And I actually thought that was quite a powerful thing. So, Andy, should we have a look at the scars video?
I was in a house fire. I survived gas explosion. I had open heart surgery. Sometimes you see scars in images, but they use more shock factor as opposed to actually exploring the person's story. So I was thinking, I was doing a really long shirt I survived the gas explosion. I went through 28 surgeries to get them looking well to my So 2 years after I've passed 13, still quite red, lumpy. It made me quite nervous about showing it, so I actually wear tops get quite high as well to cover it. I'm just more confident and comfortable myself than I thought I would be, but at the same time, days where, you know, I'll wear like that and not feel like I suffer from amnesia, so I actually don't remember anything that happened to me. I didn't have any sense of myself post-injury. I wanted something that I could happen. Everything highlighted, shooting scars, with the hospitality and pain, and it was really nice to see something so the thing for yourself, the way someone else sees you kind of change the way they think in a positive way. I actually love them. They're part of the story. Growing up and becoming an adult, you realise that it makes you more of an interesting person. I find people who have scars as well, I can completely relate to them. The things that make a difference, a little scar, a little wrinkle, is actually what makes you you. At the end of the day, we're all human.
So there you are, these scars that you would ordinarily want to hide up, and yet finding great liberation in sort of being seen.
Yeah, and you know, the thing that really stood out for me, there was one line one of the ladies said, which said something along the lines of, seeing yourself the way others see you can really change the way you think.
Right.
And I thought that was really an interesting thing, you know, because we live in a society, don't we, that in some sense there's a lot of emphasis on the other side of it, isn't it? That actually people say, don't worry about what others think about you, you know, and it shouldn't matter. It's all about in there and whatnot. But interesting, you know, she's saying how what others think of you could change you. And for me, as soon as I heard that, I thought it sounds like a profoundly Christian thing, doesn't it? I mean, the idea that, you know, because of course for us as Christians, we say yes, knowing how Jesus views us.
Yeah.
how someone else sees us does change the way we think about ourselves.
Yes. And if I try to get an identity from myself, from my own perception of myself, that can go like in two different directions that are really coming from the same place. I could either just think of myself as the ugliest person in the world and who could love me and that sort of thing, or I could think of myself as this, uniquely wonderful person that everyone must enjoy. But actually, I don't get a true sense of myself by myself. I must be seen by another who sees me to the bottom and loves me still, And I think, I just got that sense with those videos that really we've got people who they didn't want those scars to be seen, but suddenly they are seen in a new context, and I think it's profoundly liberating to be able to be seen for who we are and loved nonetheless. And I think that's when we thrive and flourish as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings us on to hypocrisy, because I guess hypocrisy is the very opposite of that. Hypocrisy is where you don't trust that you can be seen for who you are, and so you wear a mask, you wear, some kind of barrier to the world to present a different view of yourself, while inwardly you are something very different. We started talking about hypocrisy in our video that we released yesterday, but perhaps we could see maybe the first minute or so of that video, and then we'll start talking about how do we respond to people when they say to us, and they've said to me many times, I could never be a Christian, I could never join the church because it's full of hypocrites. How do we respond to that? Well, this video has a go at answering that question.
Maybe you can't stand hypocrisy. Well, you're in good company. Neither could Jesus. In fact, he coined the term hypocrite to refer to someone whose inner life didn't match their outward performance. Before Jesus used the word, it simply referred to a masked actor.
Let's just see who you really are, mister. Why, it's old man Withers, the guy who runs the haunted amusement park. I would have got away with it too if it hadn't been for you snooping kids.
But Jesus applied it to the holiest looking people on the planet. He said, see those religious policemen in their long flowing robes? Actors, a lot of them. Everything they do is done for people to see. And we hate that. And we all do it. We do and say things because we want the likes on Facebook, the approval of family and work colleagues. We want the status that comes from achievements, promotions, purchases, church attendance, prayer meetings. We do so many things, even good things, maybe religious things, to be seen by people.
All of us know what it is to put on a good face. And what does that make us? Hypocrites. Mask wearers. Jesus pulls no punches when he describes the hypocrites. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Ring any bells?
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
All of us. Beginning of our hypocrisy video, and if you want to find out more, please do go to our Facebook page and Speak Life UK there, and you can watch the whole 5 minutes. But that's the issue for today, hypocrisy.
Yep.
How are we defining hypocrisy?
Yeah, well, we were saying, weren't we, in the video, how Jesus coined the phrase, or coined the word hypocrite from the masked actors.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this idea, wasn't it, of wearing a mask. But particularly, I suppose, thinking of it from the biblical point of view, it was putting on a mask to be seen by others. So hiding your true self with something that isn't a reality.
Yeah.
Merely for the sake of an appearance.
In order to be seen by people, is that the big phrase that Jesus uses in Matthew 6 and Matthew 23.
To be seen by
Everything they do is to be seen by people. Because I think it's important to say that, because there are false views of hypocrisy as well, aren't there? So somebody might say, I don't want to be a hypocrite, and so they just completely overshare about their life.
Yeah.
The Tesco's,
Yeah, they don't want to hide.
Yeah.
They say, I don't want to hide anything.
Someone says, how are you doing today? And you say, oh, well, let me tell you about all my sins last night. And like, okay. The answer to hypocrisy is not always there's an inappropriate oversharing that could happen. And there's also, I once had breakfast with a friend who said, I don't want to forgive my brother because I don't want to be a hypocrite about it. And what he meant was he didn't feel like forgiving his brother, and so he felt that he should be authentically bitter for the rest of his life.
Maybe you can't
rather
stand.
than do something.
Hate authentically.
He wanted to hate authentically, rather than be a hypocrite and do something he didn't want to do. So hypocrisy is not. Like,
we were chatting about it, weren't we? We said, you're doing things you don't want to do. It's not like when your wife says,
Right.
do the hoovering, you say, sorry, darling, I don't really feel like doing the hoovering.
Yeah. And I don't want to be.
I don't want to be a hypocrite. Do it, unwillingly. So.
Yeah. So you can always feel righteous in your laziness. Yes. So hypocrisy, it is to do with wanting to project an image that is better than yourself. While masking your unrighteousness deep below. And so Matthew 23, whitewashed tomb is just the image.
For the Facebook likes, that's what we say on the video, isn't it?
Yeah.
We want the Facebook likes, we want the approval.
Yes.
We want people to look at us and go, wow.
Yes.
Aren't they great?
Yes. How is the sound going, people? I hope the sound is doing all right. We had some problems with the echo. Sorry about that. But I think we've got it all fixed now. Good. So hypocrisy is wearing a mask to be seen by other people. And when someone raises the question of hypocrisy in the context of evangelism, like, what are the various ways in which that question can be raised?
Well, I think it's not necessarily going to come out simply as, isn't the church full of hypocrites? It might not come out that kind of way. So it may come out in a kind of, based on like a history kind of question.
Right.
So if the church is all about, talk about love and all
Right.
this, but what about the Crusades?
Yeah.
So they're saying, you're saying you're one thing, but what about all these terrible things the church has done? And things like that. So it could be that kind of question, or I think we chatted before, haven't we, about it could be a very personal thing. So maybe they've experienced it in their own lives,
Right.
And
So
that
Christians have treated them badly, and
and that would dictate how you handle the question, I suppose. It's a bit like when you're dealing with the suffering question. You want to try and work out:
yes,
is someone asking this because they are suffering,
right?
Or someone they love is suffering,
yes,
or is it academic?
Yes,
are they here just to have a pop?
Yes, are they just selecting it from a list of ready-made objections? They
Dinosaurs?
don't. Dinosaurs? I could never be a Christian because dinosaurs. I always tell the story of Michael Utz, who sat down for lunch with a non-Christian friend of his, and he sort of asked him, look, your wife's a Christian, I'm a Christian, some of the guys that we play football with, they're all Christians, why aren't you a Christian? And he says, well, because I could never be a hypocrite like Christians, And so Motzi said to him, so those other guys in the football team, are they hypocrites? He said, oh no, they're brilliant. Those guys, I'd do anything for those guys. They're fantastic. And then he says, and your wife, is she a hypocrite? No, I love my wife. She's brilliant. And then he says, took a deep breath and said, what about me? Am I a hypocrite? He said, oh no, I don't really get that impression. And then Motzi said to him, can you name a single Christian you know who you would call a hypocrite? He said, no, actually, no. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who raises the hypocrisy question is like that.
No.
Not at all. And you don't want to treat everyone who raises the hypocrisy question like that, but it can be a convenient kind of smokescreen for not wanting to believe.
Yeah, and even if he turned around and said, yes, I can name 3 or 4 Christians. Here's some Christians who I know who are hypocrites.
Yes.
I think I'd want to say, can you name any non-Christians who are hypocrites?
Wow. Yeah.
Because I'd be very surprised if you can't, and is it possible that hypocrisy is not a Christian problem?
Right.
It's a human problem.
Wow.
It's not just...
Yeah. I remember you said that to me yesterday. I thought, that's the thing I need to say from now on. Like when people say, I know this Christian, they were a hypocrite. Yeah.
It's like, is there hypocrisy outside the church?
Yes.
Of course. So
yes.
Maybe it's not limited.
Yes. Which is always what I do when people say, religion's the cause of all wars. And I sort of say, are there non-religious causes for wars? Actually, statistically, 93% of all wars have non-religious causes.
Sure.
Maybe it's not a Christian problem. Maybe it's a human problem. And again, hypocrisy. Maybe it's just a human. Maybe it's just a human problem. Let's think about some famous examples of hypocrisy. I always think of the film Chocolat. Based on the novel. In the novel, interestingly, the real hypocrite is the priest, who, in, I guess it's 1940s, 1950s France, he stands against this chocolate shop and its owner, who's setting up a chocolate shop in the middle of Lent, this season of fasting, and how dare she do that. But in the book, it's the priest who eventually, like, cracks on Easter Saturday, just one day to go until Easter, and he kind of finds his way, into the shop, and he just starts gorging himself on all the chocolate. And in the film, it's the mayor, played by Alfred Molina, and it's just this brilliant scene of him just like completely, he passes out, having just stuffed his face with all the chocolate, and there he is. He's in the shop front window, so that as all the worshippers go to church on Easter Sunday morning, they see this hypocrite. And we all say, ha, yeah, I hate that, I hate that self-righteous, He presented to all the world one kind of mask, and inside there was this festering greed that was then revealed. Yep. What are some other examples of hypocrisy?
Yeah, well, we were thinking, we looked around and we'd find a few bits, and,
yeah.
What do we find? I mean, when we're digging up the dirt.
Yeah. The internet loves this.
Internet loves dirt,
just type in who is a hypocrite.
Who's a hypocrite?
Well, it'll tell you. Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Except you, right? You're fine.
Everyone's.
Yeah. Except this guy.
But yeah, so it's talking about Sting, big in the environment, but with his private jet,
right,
flying people around, and
yes,
people going kind of, what's that about?
Yeah.
Or Paris Hilton,
right.
I think it was 2004, the Vote or Die.
Get the vote out. Yeah.
That's quite a strong.
Vote or die.
Vote or die to encourage people to vote, but it turned out not only did she not vote, she wasn't even registered to vote.
But the real hypocrisy was that she then didn't die. That's she wasn't authentic in that way.
Oh wow! Dark quickly. Oh man.
Yeah. So
we were saying as well, rather than just pointing the finger at, we were saying basically we know we're just exactly the same,
right,
in our own lives. And we were talking about being in the car and driving, and I said one thing that really winds me up is when you stop to let someone go because maybe the road's narrowed, they go past and they don't give you the thank you wave,
right,
and I'm just like, oh, the rage
yes,
comes out. I'm just like, and I always say,
yes,
without fail, you're welcome.
That passive aggressive English way.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But then I was saying, I know there's times when I just don't do it for whatever reason myself, or people tailgating me.
Right.
I think I'm doing the speed limit, get off my tail.
Right.
But then knowing as well that if I'm on a road
yes,
and someone's going slower than the speed limit,
yes,
I will get on their tail just to encourage them.
When you do it, it's
because I can
cute.
justify what I'm doing because they are going too slow.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's like George Carlin, the American stand-up. He said, on the motorway, everyone who drives faster than you is a maniac. Everyone who drives slower than you is an idiot. Right? But you drive just right.
Exactly.
It's just hypocrite. Yeah.
That's the thing. We do justify our own hypocrisy, don't we?
Yeah.
Even if we can see it, we kind of go, oh, but there's a reason.
There's always a reason.
It's okay when I do it.
Yeah, which is to justify yourself, which is kind of
helping others.
Yeah.
Them.
And what I found interesting about when we looked up these examples of hypocrisy, like Paris Hilton and things, how delicious it felt that someone like that, and lots of people writing about Al Gore. And, he preaches a good game when he talks about the inconvenient truth, right? But his mansion and his carbon footprint is just immense. But there's, we love pointing the finger at the hypocrites and then not examining ourselves. What is that? It's hypocrisy itself. So even as we love, pointing the finger at hypocrites, we do it hypocritically.
Absolutely.
So, we have a massive problem. What is the solution, or where do we find healing for our hypocrisy?
Well, we were saying the really interesting thing, talking about pointing the finger, we were talking about Matthew 23, where Jesus is just, he is pointing the finger, and he gives this incredibly blistering critique of, the religious people and their hypocrisy. But yet, even though I'd heard it so many times and never really thought about it, his response is to say, how I long to gather you.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And when let's be honest, when we got to the end of our conversation about Paris Hilton,
Right.
we didn't say how we long to gather Paris to us, you know, or Sting, come Sting, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't our response.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were saying actually that's. I think we were talking about how sometimes the response to hypocrisy, or even generally sin in the church, can be those two spectrums. There's blistering critique, so
Right.
we'll either just spend a lot of time pointing the finger at other people and going,
Yeah.
very naughty,
Yeah.
or we're all about the gathering
Yeah.
and like the loving,
Yeah.
but there's no critique of anything, so we just say, oh, it's okay,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and we don't call people on stuff. And actually, what we see Jesus doing is he lays it down and says, this is hypocrisy, plain and simple.
Right.
Woe to you, and
Right.
but
You
then so I long
snakes.
to gather you.
Yeah.
You know?
I've got Matthew 23 open in front of me. It's amazing, like, when you see, like, the paragraph above from verse 33. He says, you snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? And then the very next paragraph, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you, how often I've longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks. And it's just,
But
you know.
how many times, probably on the internet, have you seen someone saying, oh, and Jesus was very against the religious authorities. He said, you know, maybe they're using that to attack other Christians, you know, online.
Right.
You know, and, you know, you're just like the Pharisees. Jesus says, woe to you, woe to you.
Yeah.
But I never see them saying, but it's okay, because at the end he also says gather. There's no one wants
Yeah.
to gather.
No one wants to do
You know,
both.
We don't want to do both.
He's full of grace and truth. We pick one or the other. I like truth,
Give you some
Jesus.
truth.
Yeah. I prefer
Find
grace.
your grace elsewhere.
I prefer grace Jesus. I like my Jesus to wear a tuxedo T-shirt, which says I'm formal, but I still know how to party. But yeah, that's enough of Talladega Nights quotes. But I think it is that grace and truth thing that actually what we really need is somebody to see the ugliness, to see beneath the mask, and to see that there are scars and more than scars. There's real ugliness there, and to love us nonetheless. Which is why, like my illustration from The Talented Mr. Ripley, which now I realize goes back 20 years, which so dates me. It's
Right.
like it
We've
is.
also got a clip from The Matrix in there.
That's right.
That's a movie all the kids are watching.
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah, we've got our finger on the pulse, people. It's like that part in Howard's End. You remember Howard's End? No. But The Talented Mr. Ripley, but it is a great, film about this, where Matt Damon wears the mask of being somebody else, and he kills to protect the lie, and then he has that great scene where he says, don't just take the past and put it in a box in a room in the basement and you never go in there. But then you meet someone, and you want to invite them in, and you want to toss them the key and say, open up, step inside. And I think that's the whole thing with hypocrisy. Though we want to wear masks in order to project this false image and hide our ugliness, what we want even deeper is to drop the mask and to be naked and unashamed in the presence of someone else who says, you're actually all right. And that's what actually drives us. And so our hypocrisy, though it comes so naturally to us, works against our deepest heart's desire, which is for intimacy and connection and honesty and authenticity with someone. So, but who on earth can see me in all my ugliness and yet love me? And if it weren't for Jesus, the answer is no one, But we see in Matthew 23, he is the sort of person who can see us and still love us. So maybe that then gives us the healing to be able to drop the mask and be loved anyway. You said in this video, Paul, let me quote you on this. You say, the church is the most hypocrisy-resistant institution in the history of the world. Really?
What we're saying is should be, shouldn't it? Because we were saying,
yeah,
if you were to look at what we do, when we come together as Christians, kind of generally on a weekly basis, and meet together. If we were to take a kind of standard Anglican thing, I know we're not all Anglicans and whatnot, but
some of us aren't Anglicans here. But just looking at Andy in the corner of the room,
but not we.
He's Anglicurious, but he's. We're not all Anglicans, and so, but in more traditional church services, you would.
Part of the service when you come together every week is there would be confession.
Yeah.
And that part of that is standing up and saying in front of God and in front of.
Or kneeling down, even if you're in a really traditional church. Yeah.
And basically just admitting, yes, we get it wrong.
Yes.
I have stuffed up this week in my thoughts, my words, my deeds. And part of that is something I'm saying, yes, I am a hypocrite.
Right.
You know,
I'm a sinner.
I'm a sinner.
It's like,
yeah, it's not standing up and saying, I'm a Christian, I've got it all together, I'm perfect,
Yes.
I'm one of the good ones. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's standing up and going, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I'm basically a walking disaster.
Yeah.
You know, if it wasn't for grace.
Which is like, it always strikes me going through the Old Testament and seeing all the songs that Israel sang about itself. And what's fascinating, and all the prayers that they pray about themselves, it's so not like, make Israel great again. Like, it's like, I'm going to make Israel. It's all, we have been rubbish from the very beginning, you know, and like every song that they sing, you know, everyone's national anthem are all like, we are the bear, we are the eagle, we are, you know, strong. And Kazakhstan's greatest, all the other countries are little girls. Sensational scene from Borat. But like all national anthems are like that, apart from the national anthem of God's people, which is just like, we're rubbish. We've always been rubbish. You'd be quite within your rights to damn us forever, God. But it's all about, you know, your grace and mercy, and you know.
And we were saying, weren't we? You know, the fact. I mean, we come. So that, you know, the question was, is it really the case that the church is the most
Hypocrisy resistant?
institution?
Yeah.
We say, you know, we come together on a weekly basis and do that. And Christians, you know, a lot of us probably do that kind of on an almost daily basis as well. Just get down on our knees, you know, and say we've stuffed up.
Yeah.
But we were saying, you know, can you imagine, you know, talk about the cabinet reshuffle.
Right.
Can you imagine the government standing up, you know, and basically confessing they made a mistake on a weekly basis?
On a weekly
I
basis.
said, you know, it'd be amazing if they did that during their entire term.
In their lives.
People interviewed, you know, did you make a mistake? Did you get it wrong?
Yes.
Well, you know, and they never say yes or no. They just...
Look. They always just say, look. Yeah. If you're on Radio 4, that's, if you're answering any question by John Humphrey, it's like, look. Yeah. But yeah, they'd never admit to that kind of error. And it would be a career-ending thing to do what Christians do on a weekly basis.
I sometimes wondered, though, like, what would happen if a politician just stood up and said, yeah, we dropped the ball on that one?
Yeah.
Like, would people go, oh, well, thanks for just saying that at last?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how people respond. I mean, my view of human nature is generally not that good.
Yeah.
So
I think quite rightly.
They probably pounce on them.
I think we need to have a low anthropology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think 10% of the nation would feel that this was refreshing, and then the rest would pile on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was refreshing, but you did still mess it up.
That's right.
You're out.
So, on your bike. And I remember Tim Keller was saying about church once. He said church should not feel like the waiting room for a job interview, where, like, if you're in the waiting room for a job interview, you're trying to project an image of all together, and you've got this nailed, and your CV is superior to everyone else's CV. Actually, the church should be more like the waiting room for a GP. For a doctor's surgery, in which, case you're not trying to project an image of being all together, you're coughing, and and because Jesus says, I've not come to call the healthy but the sick, I've not come to call the righteous but sinners, Mark 2 verse 17. So there is where you're going to find healing for hypocrisy, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's when, that's, coming together each week in the church in confession, it's basically standing up saying, yeah, I'm sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is.
And I need healing.
Yeah.
So I think you can justify that statement. The most hypocrisy-resistant institution. Not that it's hypocrisy-free.
No, of course not.
Because we would be hypocrites to claim that we're hypocrisy-free. But I think, what are we going to do? Because it's a human problem. How are we going to build up our antibodies against this human problem? And I think that regular confession, that law and gospel, the law that condemns us and the gospel that saves us, is going to keep us from going too far astray. Last thing I want to say on the hypocrisy thing, and I've never been bold enough, and there's never been the right opportunity to do this, so I'd love to hear what people think about this as an approach. But basically, it's kind of an approach that Nathan takes to David. Remember when David sins and sleeps with Bathsheba and kills to cover it up? Nathan, the prophet, comes and tells him a story. And it's the story about this, man who's just got this little lamb, an ickle lamb. And imagine the ickle lamb, and he feeds him in his arms, and he goes to sleep with this lamb. And then someone else comes and takes the lamb away. And David says, that's outrageous. How dare he do that? And then Nathan says, you are the man. Where's the camera? There we go. You are the man. Like, back. Here. You are the man. You are the man, right? And that's brilliant preaching, isn't it? You tell the story, you make people realize who the bad guy is, and then say, like, you're the bad guy. So I wonder whether it's possible to do this, or whether it's even desirable to do this when you're talking about hypocrisy, is to tell the story of the prodigal son. And to tell the story about the two brothers. The younger brother goes off and, squanders the wealth on wild living, and he comes back, and the father forgives him, and the older brother is outraged that the younger brother, in all his sin and hypocrisy, should be welcomed home, and it seems like the family home has now become a place for sinners, and how dare, And so the older brother stays outside in all his righteousness, and he ends up being incredibly angry at his dad, and he ends up being an incredibly bad son, because he will not pull up a chair next to the younger brother and identify with this other sinner, because he's not a sinner. Yeah. He's got too much integrity, and so he stands out. And so you tell this story, and you say, what a bad guy the older brother is, and then you say, you are the man. You are the man. If you say, I could never join church because there are all these people, with these messed up lives in it. I've got too much integrity. I could never be one of those hypocrites like the Christians are. Like, you're the older brother. And yet you're wearing the mask that says, I don't wear masks, which is the worst kind of mask, because you're never going to take that one off.
The no hypocrisy mask.
I'm wearing the no hypocrisy mask. You're really stuffed if you're wearing the no hypocrisy mask. So I don't know. I've never done that to anybody.
Dropped it on someone. No.
What do people think? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's. I mean, with a lot of things, isn't it? It's context, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on who's asking and how they're asking and why they're asking that question.
Yeah.
You're more likely to come back with a firm. Rebuff to the person who's out for a pop rather than the person who's genuinely been hurt by hypocrisy.
Yeah, you're right.
This is why my church treated me terribly, and because then they were hypocritical.
You are the man. Okay. There's a time and a place.
Gauge it.
So what we're saying is, the first thing to do is to ask, what experiences of hypocrisy have you had? And let's talk about, and if it is about the Crusades, well, maybe we need to talk about that. And if quite often people have said to me, I came from this church and they treated me terribly. And sometimes I look into that, and actually they had sinned in terrible ways, and the church had actually executed proper church discipline on that person, and they had to leave that other church. And it wasn't the case that other church had acted unrighteously. It was, it was the person themselves had acted unrighteously. So no wonder the church had treated them like they treated them. So you just need to press into these things and and not give the blanket response when someone says about hypocrisy. But I love your response. Just say, so can you name any non-Christians who have been hypocrites? Maybe it's a human problem. And what's actually going to heal it? Yeah, dropping the mask. And being loved anyway. Brilliant. Well, that's all we've got to say about hypocrisy. What do you guys think about hypocrisy? We're going to leave the comments open on this video, and feel free. We will interact with you on the comments here. We'll also upload this to YouTube, and we'll release this as a podcast as well on Friday. So if you're not subscribed to our podcast, please do subscribe. We are going to be called the Speak Life Podcast. So get that wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll have this discussion in your ears every Friday. Next week, what are we talking about?
I think next week we're going to be aiming to be talking about post-truth.
Right.
So in this age of everything being relative and fake news, we're going to be touching on that.
Your fake news. Your fake news. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be quite a good one. And actually, because when we went to the what was the convention called, the Mind, Body and Soul,
Mind, Body, Spirit,
one of those. That was one of the things I found I came up against a lot. The whole kind of everything's just relative.
Right.
Your truth is yours.
Yeah.
My truth is mine, and let's all just get along.
Yeah. What do you say to that? Well, tune in next week and find out.
Join us Tuesday.
So that's the schedule. So Fridays we'll drop this podcast. On Mondays we'll have our Thorny Questions video. And then on Tuesdays we'll be doing this live. If we can sort out some of these sound issues, thank you for sticking with us. If you stuck with us through some of those sound issues, we appreciate it very, very much. Do give us a like on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. But that's all we've got time for today. Paul, thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here. Thanks for being here as well.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. Yeah. And keep on smiling, and bye for now. Bye-bye.
See ya.